Why are you acting?
I love it. I love it.
Ever since I saw Jaws as a kid, there was one actor in that movie that really stood out. Of course, the three leads are all fantastic. Roy Scheider is an amazing actor. If you haven't seen All That Jazz and his other work, you're about to be blown away by the variety of characters that he portrays. Robert Shaw, of course, is fantastic. The Sting is one of my favorite movies. But out of the three, the actor that always stood out to me since I was a kid was none other than Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss is one of the most underrated actors, especially the 1970s era of films. Often people consider that one of the golden ages of cinema. Early on in the 70s, Richard Dreyfuss plays the lead role in American Graffiti, which was just a brilliant, beautiful performance. Then in the middle, of course, is Jaws, and then he finishes off the 70s with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is possibly Steven Spielberg's best film, or it's at least up there. What I always have sensed from Richard Dreyfuss is the unique energy that he brings to each and every scene.
Quick, hang a right.
What? Why?
Steven, cut over to G Street. I just saw a vision. I saw a goddess.
It's in his voice, it's in his mannerisms, but there's just an energy that is captivating. And overall, it's not just the energy, but there's an authenticity behind the energy. He's an authentic actor. So let's dive into this fantastic interview with Richard Dreyfuss and check out what he has to say.
An actor whose instrument is his own emotions, his instrument is to exhibit his emotions and to free and to express all those things that everyone else is uptight about. Ted Kotcheff, who is a fine director, said that it would be embarrassing for him to be an actor. He could never be an actor. That's why he's a director. He could never get in front of a camera or on stage and expose his emotions. That's why people think it's childish, because children do that.
One of the biggest things that stands out to me about this interview and Richard Dreyfuss's work as a whole is the childish or childlike process that he continually points out. There's an innocence and a raw emotional state of acting. So we'll get more into what that means, that acting is a childlike process. But first, let's just discuss his point about the way that that influences the perception around acting. And it's interesting because the childlike attitude is looked down on in society. And that's why we have Jesus saying, unless you change and become like a child, you can never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So I think that quote from Jesus really directly relates to art and acting as well. If we think of the kingdom of heaven instead of a religious concept, we think of it as an artistic concept, and let's just call it true inspiration. To reach true inspiration, you have to have you have to become like a child. And that means things have to be new and fresh, and you have to have a pure heart when you address, especially as a writer and actor. You can't judge your characters. You have to become the characters, and that in a way is also like a child, because children accept their surroundings. They become their surroundings, for better or worse. And there's a beautiful innocence to that. So I think it directly relates to the process of acting. And this quote that Dustin Hoffman told Richard Dreyfuss is equally interesting, where he said, acting is a womanish profession.
I know Dustin Hoffman once said that acting, he thought, was basically a womanish profession. Now, he didn't mean it in a sexist way, but he meant that it is that an actor is always done to, is dealt with, and is exposing himself. And the entire thrust of society is to hide those emotions and to kind of not be done to. So there are actors walking around with incredible guilt complexes about being actors. Now, it's strange. It's strange because there is at the basis of it such a communal art, such a no one is ashamed to go to the theater. They're just ashamed to get on stage.
So this childlike exposing of emotions, or being one with your emotions, is something that Richard Dreyfuss claims the entire thrust of society is to hide emotions. And a great example of this would be in the office space. In the office, it doesn't matter how well your day is going or how you feel, you put on a persona to hide the way you feel, and you come into work hopefully with the same emotional state no matter what's going on. And of course, there's a time and a place for that. But an actor's job is to do the opposite of that, where society creates structures for us to basically hide our emotional state. An actor's supposed to not only reveal that emotional state, but to find it, to express it, and to share it with the entire world. And I love his quote that he says around the 11-minute mark, if you're following along with the interview.
No one is ashamed to go to the theater. They're just ashamed to get on stage. No one is ashamed to feel the catharsis that an actor will give them. They're just ashamed of being that actor that does it for them. It's a thing that I don't have yet. Maybe I'll develop that shame. I don't, but I don't have it now.
And what he's getting at is everyone loves to enjoy the art and enjoy the actor perform. It's if they had to get up on the stage, that is where they're terrified. Statistically, actually, public speaking is listed as like the greatest fear of most people, or it's the second to greatest fear. So besides death. And Jerry Seinfeld has a great quote about that means you'd rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy. So he finishes off by describing the state of society, the way that society pushes against showing authentic emotion, and the way that people fear presenting that emotion in front of others. And he finishes it with just a beautiful statement, which is, I don't have that shame.
It's a thing that I don't have yet. Maybe I'll develop that shame. I don't, but I don't have it now.
Artists bear the brunt of exposing their shame and deepest emotions in front of the world so that the world doesn't have to. They keep us sane. They allow us to fully deal with that from within. That's what an artist provides. That's the value that art gives us. Okay, so the childlike process we've already covered, but how about the authentic emotions that Richard Dreyfuss so effortlessly portrays in his great performances?
Now, the reason we go to the theater in our gut is not only for that Greek tragedy catharsis, but also to say to ourselves unconsciously, he says like I say He cries like I cry. Someone else does that like me. I'm not alone. All right? Now that's why I'm an actor. I get an emotional get-off when I say I did that just the way I really do it. I acted that just the way I really do it. I used to get off falsely on my anger. I used to say, wow, I have great anger as an actor. The other day, recently in an acting class, I realized what real anger was and how polite my anger had been, and now I can't wait to get angry in a part. I can't wait to do it, because I realized what it was, that I had been kind of being polite about my anger and kind of being sexy or trying to be sexy. But real anger is so naked and embarrassing and strange, and to really do that.
If we're talking about Richard Dreyfuss's performances, I think the best example of this is in American Graffiti. One of my favorite moments with Richard Dreyfuss is when he's in the back of the car and he looks through the window and he sees the blonde woman. And when he asks them to go follow her and they say, sorry, I don't know what you're talking about, and they basically dismiss him, he then goes on about her beauty and that he thinks she said she loved him. And just watch that clip.
Quick, hang a right.
What? Why?
Steven, cut over to G Street. I just saw a vision. I saw a goddess. Come on, you gotta catch up to her.
Of course, this is early on in the movie and we're just getting to know this character, but I think the way that he shows the excitement.
This was the most perfect, dazzling creature I've ever seen.
She's gone. Get it.
She spoke to me. She spoke to me right through the window. I think she said, I love you. That means nothing to you people? You have no romance, no soul? Someone wants me. Someone roaming the streets wants me. Will you turn the corner?
So authentic. There's no judgment from himself, and he's purely releasing how he feels. And it's just such a beautiful moment. I think it's one of the best performances I've ever seen in that moment, honestly. It's amazing because that scene is the anchor of the entire movie. It's what drives his character to do practically everything. And it's just, he nailed it. And Richard Dreyfuss describes his process as capturing his emotional state. And he explains that this could be a feeling of nakedness, it could be embarrassing, and it's strange. There is a feeling of nakedness when you create great art, and it can be terrifying. And you have to learn to have confidence in that.
I mean, I guess it's like Van Gogh or a painter who says, I really know how to paint that thing, or I really know how to put that music down. An actor has the right to say, I really know how to do this. I really know how to show you you. I'm going to show you how you make love. I'm going to show you how you say yes or no or hello or I don't know or hesitate or fear or express joy. All those words that we're embarrassed to say. That's what an actor does. And he has every right to be proud of it. And most of the actors I know are not proud of it.
And he explains that unlike any other art form, acting is where you actually channel the emotion rather than a painter who, let's say, wants to express a mood and puts it on a canvas, or music that wants to express an emotion and puts it through music. The actor actually uses the emotion and allows that emotion to come through them in a very, very real way and express it in front of the world. And he explains correctly that it's the only art form that actually uses the emotion itself as the expression. And that is performance, that is acting, and that is what makes it so captivating. It's how we really express something, it's how we really live or say something, or our real mannerisms, and we can find that in a performance and connect to it. Ultimately, acting is emotion itself. And my third and final takeaway from this interview is that you have to fall in love with your art. And not just your art, but the art form that you're using. If you watch the way Richard Dreyfuss talks about acting, I mean, he says several times in this interview alone, he loves acting. He loves it. You have to be in love with the art form, or you're just not going to be able to get through the hurdles that it takes to find a place of satisfaction with your art. It's a long journey, and you have to have that passion for it. And I think ultimately, if you want to be a great actor, or a great filmmaker, or whatever, and of course all artists are welcome to this channel, but if you want to capture greatness, you have to first find within the obsession and love with the art form itself. Only then can you reach greatness, because your obsession will drive you to perfect your craft. And Richard Dreyfuss is a fantastic example of this. Ever since he was a child, it's all he wanted to do. He said since he was an infant that he wanted to act. I don't know how he knows that, but I'm sure it was true. And that fixation, that love and passion for your art can drive you all the way. And even if you meet the greatest obstacles, if you're truly in love with your art form, you're not going to stop and you're not going to give up. So keep pushing forward, keep pursuing, find new ways to be creative, and find new ways to express your emotions from within.